Are we up? Let's see, volume, height, testing, 1, 2, 3. Are we up? Let's see, volume, height, testing, 1, 2, 3. That's going to roll around again. Good morning, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, a bit of a different stream today. I'm not that well organized this morning, sorry, bit of a different stream. There's a story to tell, paper story to tell, and then I've got some testing to do. Not very much testing, but some testing to do. Let me just see if I've got all my ducks in a row here before I start with what's going on here today. This could be one of the most important days in our year, or in more than 1 year, but let me just get organized here first. I'm sitting at the bench that Kalai-san's been using for the past few days. He's been printing a bunch of something we've all seen before. He's been printing a bunch of owls here. So I'm just coming in and moving his stuff out of the way for a moment. But as it happens, the colors he was using, blue and green, will probably suit for me for today as well. I don't know what he's got here. Okay, paper. We have a story to tell about paper. Those of you who've been following our streams and following the YouTube channels and the blog and whatever for the past few years know we've been having tons and tons and tons of problem with paper. We get our paper from a living national treasure. I shouldn't really talk about names and stuff too much here because some of the stuff I have to say is not so polite. It's a family with 9 generations of experience making paper, and for 90% of my printmaking life here in Japan, I've been using their paper. It's been wonderful. It's been paper worthy of the designation, made by a living national treasure. Over the years, it's changed slightly. The modern world is different from the previous world, and there's less demand for high quality paper and whatever. Long story short, the paper has been, we can't hide it, the paper is degrading in quality bit by bit over a number of years now. This is 2018. If we go back to the summer of 2016, there was a dramatic change. The quality of the paper fell off a cliff. 2 or 3 things were wrong. One is I don't have a sample of this paper from that time. What is it? The paper itself began to be full of bark scraps, quite large bark scraps. I can't get into a whole long story about how paper is made here, but over at the place where they grow the mulberry, they take off the outer bark and remove as much of the dark, unwanted stuff as they can. They prepare what's called white mulberry, shiroi kozo, send it to the papermaker. There is still chiri in there. Everybody knows that. There's still bark scraps in there. As part of the papermaking process, they boil it, separate out the fibers, pick out hand by hand the bark scraps, then go through and make paper. They're short-staffed, they're pressed for time, pressed for everything. Most of their customers don't care if there's some bark scraps in. There's only the 2 or 3 customers like us who are making clean ukiyo-e prints who care about it, so they've sort of let it go. That's problem 1. There's been way too many bark scraps. I've got a stack downstairs, and this is no exaggeration, a stack downstairs of more than 200 copies of the Great Wave print that are rejected because of bark scraps in the paper. Literally, more than 200 copies rejected. That's point number 1. The second point, what dramatically changed 2 years ago, is something went wrong with the paper internally. We would get the paper, size it as normal, looks okay, looks cool, start printing, and when we pull the paper off the block, I forgot to prepare a sample for you. Give me 1 second, it's in the next room. Let me go and grab a sample of this. No can do. It looks like they've been thrown out. Okay. Back to the story. We would put the paper down on the block, try and print it, and when we pull it off, many, many fibers pulled from the front of the paper. That's normally a sign that the sizing is too weak. And in fact, if we took a piece of paper unsized and tried to print it, the fibers pull apart. That's just natural paper. This is why we size the paper, so that it gives it some body and the thing holds together while we print. And sizing is a variable thing, depending on the season, depending on what we're going to be printing with, depending on how much pressure. We adjust the sizing so that the paper will hold together during the job. So whatever, 2 years ago in the summer, the fibers pulled off, and I thought, oh my God, my sizing is no good. I've screwed up. I maybe got the mix of glue wrong, whatever. So we try another batch. Same problem. Another batch, same problem. I get on the phone to a couple of other workshops, people who, are also getting paper from the same place. And they're complaining about the same thing. Something internally had gone wrong with the paper. We talked to them, we had to get some more. Nobody's ready to blame these people yet. They're living national treasures. The assumption is that, I'm sort of screwing up here and we haven't got it quite right, or the seasonal mix is wrong, whatever. Without making a long episode about this, over the past 2 years, it's been a little bit better, it's been worse, it's been a little bit better, it's been worse. The paper has changed. It's no longer reliable. It's no longer any good. It's full of problems. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We struggle with the sizing mightily because every batch, every lot is dramatically different. Simply, after 9 generations out there, they have lost it. I've tried to talk to them about this. It's difficult. The elderly man who runs the workshop, the living national treasure himself, no longer has his hand in making this, except when the TV crews come, he poses with the stuff to do it. It's his son who is single-handedly trying to run the business. He's in his 50s. He's a real good guy. He's working hard. I have nothing bad to say about him at all, but he's overwhelmed by the poor quality material coming in. The super high demand from workshops in Tokyo now because of all the pop culture prints that are being made. No help from his community. His wife doesn't work with him. Anyway, long story short, we've seen for 2 years now. We struggled for the first year of this problem 2 years ago. And then about a year ago, I said, that's it. We have to do something else. We cannot wait anymore. We cannot depend on these people coming back to normal. We're out on our own. So we've still been ordering paper from them, and we still are ordering paper from them. But over a year ago, I said, we need plan B. I went out and started searching for other workshops, somebody who might be willing to work with us to create the kind of paper we need. There's really, all over Japan, there's hundreds of different kinds of paper being made, all over the country. Hundreds, literally hundreds of kinds. Just go to the workshop. They're generally the experience about making paper for print making. All the paper for the prints, since Edo time, all the paper for prints has come from one real area. It's what we call Echizen. It's the area now known as Fukui Prefecture. And one town has been the place, Otakimachi, where most of this paper has been made. And year by year, the workshops have been dropping out like flies as the demand died over the course of the 20th century. Anyway, point being, I can't find a workshop to do this. We have to develop a workshop to do this. I started networking round and around and around, and one day somebody on the net or whatever, one of the people who've been watching our work and hearing me complain about this on a video or something, sent me a Facebook link to a papermaking village over in Gifu Prefecture, which is another main center of papermaking. Not so much for traditional printmaking paper, but for papermaking. Anyway, so he sent me the Facebook plan. I opened this guy's Facebook page and what is this? This looks really strange. He's making paper. It seems the traditional way. There's pictures of his workshop, but the tub where he dips the paper, for example, looks a bit funny. Instead of being this archaic ancient wood tub in a beamed building, it's stainless steel. In the background of the picture, I can see refrigerators all in a row. The whole place looks super clean. He's dipping the paper and he's wearing a mask. It looks like we're looking into a kitchen or something. And there's some comments here and there about what he's doing and trying to make nice paper. And he's young. He looked like he was trying to make really clean, interesting paper. So I got in touch with the guy. I think email first, then phone, I can't remember. And then I got on the train and went out there to see him because it looked interesting. And it was fantastic. The kind of paper he was making was nothing to do with us. Couldn't be used for printmaking. He was making shoji paper, paper to cover shoji screens. The cheapest, most disposable kind of paper on the planet. They were also making smaller paper. His wife had an origami thing, making jewelry out of folded paper and stuff like this. It was sort of a crafty workshop. But it ticked off so many points. The place was super clean, not a speck of dust in it. The paper he was making, these are big size sheets, like to cover a whole screen door, was absolutely pristine, crystal clear white paper, not a speck of bark anywhere. It was summertime when I went to see him, and the pulp, we're worried about the pulp going moldy. And he says, yeah, man, if this goes moldy, the resulting paper has no strength at all. So I keep the stuff in the fridge when we're not, actually doing it. And I'm like, yeah, let's keep talking. It's one of the days when I had been to the old workshop we were using up in Fukui Prefecture. This is 3-4 years ago, whatever. I dropped in to see them without letting them know I was coming. I was just, on a tour doing different things. I dropped in to see them. And I had walked up to their workshop, the Living National Treasure workshop. And there's nobody in the main room rocking paper. And I'm, hello, where are you? Nobody around. And in one of the outbuildings, I hear a voice. Junsan, the guy's voice. I'm over here. So I go towards the outbuilding. And as I get closer, the door's open. I can see him inside. He's washing pulp inside a vat. As I get closer, he says, don't come in, don't come any closer. And I'm like, what is this, top secret or something? And as I got closer, I could feel the stink. What he was doing was he had vats of mulberry fiber that he'd been sort of processing and jumping to the next job and processing and jumping back. Because it was summertime, he had too much work to do. Some of these vats had sat for too long and they had gone absolutely, totally rotten. And what he was doing was scooping them out in nets, putting them in the clear water and washing it off so that he would go and make paper with it the next day. It was absolutely rotten to the core. And, is that the reason why the paper we're getting from him comes apart? I don't know, but things were adding up. Anyway, jump back to the new guy here over in Gifu Prefecture. Refrigerators. Clean vat stainless steel. It turns out that he had, I'm not sure which this is. There's a local craftsmen's association in all of these areas. And this new guy I'm talking to in Gifu Prefecture, I don't know the nuance. Either he had been thrown out of the Craftsmen's Association or he had left voluntarily. And the reason is because he is changing things too much. He's using stainless steel, clean for this, instead of the old archaic wooden vats. He's putting a refrigerator. He's doing all these nice, new, neat, modern things. And either the old guys were saying, look, this is not the way we do this. We want our traditional designation. Or, I don't know the backstory on that. Point is, the group is over there, and he is separated from the traditional craftsman's group, and he is working on his own. I'm upset about this. No way. This is he's just ringing all my bells one by one. The thing about the vat and the room, if we go back to the old guy, the Living National Treasure up in Fukui Prefecture, he's a living national treasure. He's designated as such, and part of that designation, they get money from the government every month. But part of the designation is you will not change anything. You will keep making this paper the way it's been made for generations immemorial, and you will not change anything. That might be a good thing if you want traditional paper, but if you want to sort of make things a bit cleaner than it used to be, no, you can't do that. And thinking about it now, I've been in that workshop in Fukui 10, 20, 30 years. Many times I've been over there. I'm standing next to the vat where the guy does this, and it's a building with wooden beams, and wow, this is so cool, and it's been here since 1865 and all that stuff. The downside of that, these wooden beams are coated with dust and muck, and it hasn't been cleaned in 500 years. A truck goes by the street outside and little vibrations, and the dust and little bits of crap fall all over the place. This new workshop now, out in Gifu Prefecture, he doesn't care about that. He cares about clean. You think you're jumping in a place where they make school lunches. They're so critical about being clean and that. Anyway, long story short, we sat and chatted. The paper he was making for shoji screens was completely useless for me. I can't use it. It's just thin. It's clean and nice, but it's just useless for woodblock printmaking. Now, at the core of it, it's the same material. This paper he was using to make his shoji paper was 100% white mulberry fiber and nothing else. And when they dip it in the vat, there's a liquid that's made from hibiscus root that goes in there to keep the fibers floating in the vat and to help it drain properly. But so the materials, the raw materials of the stuff he's making is the same raw materials as the paper we've been using for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. It's a question of how you dip, how thick it is, how you rock the thing, how the fibers are locked together. That's all that has to be changed. So I told him my story and said, look, we need some paper. We can't find it. And he knows, he knows all these things. He's in the paper business all over the place. He's in and out, in and out, in and out all over the place. So he knew. But he said, look, what am I going to do? I can't just all of a sudden make one sheet and send it to you as a sample, because to make a batch of sheets, you're making 100, 200, 500 sheets of paper of a certain style. He can't just, in the middle of making his shoji paper, dip one sheet for me, my style, and then do it. It doesn't work like that. He's got to do like a test run, arrange a screen of a different type to lay the paper on, stack it in a different way, dry it in a different way. So it wasn't so easy just for him to say, okay, I'll try and make one for you and let's see how it works. So as the time went by, and it turned out that he found some time to make a small test production run of some paper of the kind of type that I like. And this will now be, where are we now? We're in spring of 2018. This would have been about a year ago, I guess, somewhere around last spring. He sent us a few sheets that he'd sort of made in one corner of his workshop as a small sample batch. And I've talked about these before, actually. The stories overlapping now with some of the stories I've talked about before. We got it. I don't have any of this. Oh, I don't have any of the very first samples he sent to us, but whatever. I've got the second batch samples, and now today I've got the third batch samples, the first production run. That's what we're going to do today, to overlay. His first samples came a year ago. His second samples came last autumn, September, so. And now the first production batch has arrived. So that's the point of today's story, and we are testing the first production batch today. So hang on, please. Sorry, long story. Anyway, the first samples came. They looked interesting. They were clean, totally clean. They were a bit funny in the feel. The Baron didn't rub smoothly across the back of them. We looked at them and talked to them, and I actually went out there again. I got on the train, went back out there again, took them with me, and he and I sat there, and I'm showing him this paper and what we need, blah, 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 blah. It was back and forth. Okay, well, now I get what you need. We'll try the next step. Then come last September, he sent me 3 full large sheets. He'd actually tried to do a production run, sent me 3 sheets of this, of 3 thicknesses. Let's just call them, I don't know, thin, medium, and thick, whatever, for the point of view. We'll talk about it a bit later when we show the new paper. And I cut some of it up, sized some of it, and we tried testing it here, and seems okay. It made prints. It put color on it, printed normally. And then something very, very interesting happened. I think I mentioned this before in one of the streams. We sent a few sheets where we were having some of the Ukiyo-e Heroes prints made by Kubota-san, one of Tokyo's oldest and most respected printers. He's working steadily for us now all the time. I slipped a few sheets into the batch that we were sending him. He knows it's different paper. I said, look, there's some test sheets in there also. Have a look at this. Mark them on the back. If they're no good, throw them away. If they're good, whatever. Just test this out. He starts printing and calls me. This is like a week later. He calls me and says, where did you get the old paper? And at first, I didn't understand what he's talking about. But then it turns out it's these test sheets he's talking about. Where did you get the old paper? You found a batch of paper from 40, 50 years ago. And that's an indication of the way this new paper maker has made the paper in a clean, more natural way. And it's an indication of how much the other paper has now decayed in the last 30 or 40 years. That this experienced printmaker said, that's it, my God, this is the kind of paper I used to have when I was younger. So we tried it. The prints looked good. There were no problems. It actually was a bit difficult to print because none of us know how to do this. We've all changed our ways of doing things. And none of us really know cleanly how to use the paper. He said, the tool sort of rubs a bit stiffly on the back, but no problem. We got to figure out just how to use this and how to do this. Anyway, long story short, you can see where we're going with this. So I took those 3 samples, talked to the paper maker. We can tell his name. His name is Sawaki-san. He's out in Gifu Prefecture. Talked to the paper maker. We said, look, this looks usable. Let's fly with this. And I gave him an order for paper for 1/3 of my needs for 2018. We're still ordering from the Living National Treasure Workshop, of course. We can't suddenly bet on this new horse with everything we own. So I gave him an order for 1/3 of our needs for 2018. And the reason we settled on 1/3, it's just simply that's the amount that he can make because that's only the amount of mulberry fiber he had obtainable to him. As part of that process of separating from his local craftsmen's association, it means separating from his source of supply. And he can no longer just pick up the phone and easily get mulberry fiber. This is a big deal. Japan's a very networked, locked-in country. So he has been in his backyard, which is, he said it's in a farming area. He's been growing his own mulberry fiber. Because of course he's working for his own future as well. I told you this story was long and tangled, I'm sorry. So the 1/3 of this year's supply is all he could supply from the mulberry that was growing in his backyard. So when I came back from his workshop that day, I started the next phase of this project, which is I have to find some mulberry fiber. And I think we better save that story for later, because actually there's a package arriving here next week. We'll save that story for later. We've got some mulberry fiber. Anyway, so what I've received in the mail, in the post, yesterday, 2 days ago, this is Sunday, rather than Thursday, was the first of the shipments of the paper we'll be receiving from him over the next few months, which will constitute 1/3 of our paper supply for this year. Now we got it, and what I did was I had Cameron San, he was here the other day, I had him take some pictures while we opened these packages, because I was thinking like, hey Cameron, if this all goes really well, if this goes really well, this will be sort of this will be a historic day, the day the Mokuhankan workshop got this first batch of paper. And because what we've done, I didn't really mention it before, is the kind of paper he has made for us now. It's a new kind of paper that hasn't actually existed before. This new paper, it's made in Gifu Prefecture. He's actually located in Minoshi. And there's a kind of paper called Minogami, paper from Mino, that kind of stuff they're using for the shoji screens. We can't call this Minogami. It's made there, but it's not that type. We can't call this Echizen Hosho, because it's not made in Fukui Prefecture, and it's totally different taste and look and feel from the Echizen Hosho that's here. So Sawaki-san and I, we're trying to think, we need a new name for this. This is actually a new type of paper now that he and I have created together. Mostly he, I mean, under my needs, he's put it together. So we're going to have to think of a new name for this, assuming that it goes well. Okay, now that's the easy part of the story. I've got three... I need a script here to keep you on track. I don't have a script, I'm sorry. The samples that we got from him in last autumn came in 3 thicknesses. You're going to have to learn a new Japanese word here, momme. It's 8 momme, 11 momme, and 15 momme. Now momme is, I'm not even sure if it's weight or thickness, but it describes the heaviness of the paper for us. And it's an old, I know, it's before metric system, it's an old measure of I think they use it for rice, in that sense it's weight. I don't know. In the case of the paper world, when we talk about the momme of a paper, it actually talks about the thickness, how much fiber is in it, how thick it is. And this is 8, 11, and 15. And he makes his paper in a very, very interesting way. Normally, if you talk to a paper and you say, okay, I want my paper about 8, he'll sit there scooping and then scoop some more. You've seen videos of the paper making. He will scoop enough so that he thinks there's enough fiber on there to make paper of the thickness that's called 8 thickness. And then he lays it out, goes back and scoops. So each sheet of paper is scooped to make 1 sheet of paper. Sawaki-san is working out a different way of doing this. And this may be a good idea, may not be a bad idea. Time will tell. This is part of all this testing. What it does is he scoops first quite a light, thin sheet. It's light and thin enough so that he can see the bamboo screen on which he's scooping. And this is important because when you're making a piece of very thick paper, you scoop and rock and scoop and rock and scoop and rock. And because of the fiber building up, you can't see the bamboo screen anymore. So you have no visual clue as to how thick this paper is. You know what you've done. You've scooped once or scooped twice or scooped 3 times. So it's experience. What he's doing is this. He's scooping a light amount of mulberry fiber. Really, way too thin for printmaking. But he can see the screen and he can gauge quite easily, according to him, how thick this is. And he couches it, puts it on the post. These are words. Couching means taking the paper off this screen and laying it on the stack of wet paper that's building up. It's called a post. He lays it on it. These are Western terms. I don't even know the Japanese terms. Then he goes back, scoops again a light sheet, gets it, couches it, scoops back again. So all these sheets are way too thin for use, but he's now got a stack of super thin paper. Now, you maybe know how to do this. They They press this, the water squeezes out, it's all a bunch of wet fiber. And then now, at drying time, he peels off. What they normally do is peel off one sheet of this, peel it up, put it on the drying boards, it dries, and that's your finished sheet of paper. But what he does, I've asked him for, let's just call it again, thin, medium, and thick. To make the thin one, he goes to the post and peels up together 2 of these super thin sheets, lifts them up together, peels them off, puts them on the drying board with a brush, chuk, 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 away you go, away you go, away you go. When they're dry, you peel them off, and that is now 1 sheet of the finished paper of the hachimomme, the 8 momme. So the 8 weight is actually 2 sheets of super thin paper bonded together by the making process. You can see where this is going. The medium, the 11, is actually 3 sheets. And the heavy, the 15, is 4 sheets. So ideally it would be 4, 8, 12, 16, but it doesn't quite balance. They're not that deep. So it's 8, 11, and 12 are a double sheet, a triple sheet, and a quadruple sheet. And these are the samples he sent to us last autumn. And the reason he does it is he thinks this is sort of, it gives much more consistency. Because the thin sheets might have a little tiny bit of variation. By the time you've added them up and balanced them, the batch of paper that you're going to get has much more consistency. He feels, whatever we were going to see in the telling how this turns out. So anyway, long story. When I was there putting my order in after these test sheets had come through, my order for 1/3 of this year's paper, we looked and guessed at what we might need. We need thinner paper for making things like the Great Wave print. We need thicker paper for making things like those Doi Hunger prints with multiple layers of color all on top of each other. So I ordered from him, I forget the exact number, it was 100 sheets of the hachimomme, 100 sheets of the 8, and 200 sheets of the 11. It's about 1/3 of our needs for the next year. Away we went. We paid for it last year already, paid him in advance because we had to get rid of money last December. The paper, the first batch of it, not the whole year's order, but the first batches of it arrived a couple of days ago. And as I said, because we thought this was kind of a big event for us, I asked Cameron, hey Cameron, I'm going to have a look at this paper. I'm going to open it up. I threw Cameron the camera. And while I tell you the rest of this little story, before I am going to print today. Trust me, I am going to print. I've got a bit of a picture here. I think if I know how to use this broadcast software, we should be able to pop. Look at this slideshow. This is really show and tell. There we are. This is the print party room. Some of you have been here, you may notice that room. It's a print party room, and the 4 cylinders, in each cylinder is about 30 or so sheets of paper. And there's 2 cylinders with 8. I think the actual, can we see? So there's 2 with 8 and 2 with 11. And this is the first batch of production paper, and I'm full of my own importance here. This could be a historical day. If this paper does really turn out to be useful, if it does turn out to be something we can use, this is a big, big day for Japanese printmaking. If we can find good mulberry, if he can be consistent, if we can use this stuff. We're still testing, but this could be so important. Anyway, let's go. Here we are. I opened the 8 first because this is the one we need really for making great wave prints. Here I am. Another picture of Dave. The packing, so everything the guy does is clean and clear. The other packing, I don't even want to talk about it, whatever. Oh, oops. Excuse me, how do I do this? I don't know. I don't know the instructions for this slideshow, how to rotate it. Anyway, you can see what I'm doing, just opening a package. And here we are. These are large sheets. They are, you have to figure centimeters, I'm sorry, they're 900, what are they, 900 and 980 in length, width rather, side to side, and they're about 640 top to bottom. And these are big sheets. The other papermaker we've been using, for 20, 30 years, the Living National Treasure papermaker, called us last year saying, sorry guys, I won't be able to make this large paper anymore because our tools for making it have decayed to the point where they don't work anymore and it's game over. We're just going to be making paper big enough for the Great Wave from now on. Really, that's no lie. The Living National Treasure papermaker has now cut down all his options and he's only going to make paper of one single size, enough to make 2 Great Wave prints side by side, the classical ukiyo-e size. Whatever. Can't be helped. This is the new guy here, Sawaki-san's paper. This is big. And we're touching it. It's a picture. What can I say with a photograph? It is smooth to touch, silky smooth to touch. That's a plus minus. Sometimes when you see silky smooth paper, there's a minus, because in the old days, when they were drying the paper, I told you, they peeled it up off the wet stack, put it in boards to dry it in the sun. This was on a board, a piece of wood. Now, you get the board from the board maker. He planes it smooth, gets it ready for you. Put your paper on a very smooth, beautiful piece of wood, brush it down, put it out in the sun and dry it. The resulting paper has a smooth, beautiful, almost like a calendared surface. Now, you do your next batch of paper. You put it on this board, put it out in the sun. Now, the board absorbs water from this paper, of course, and then it's in the sun and it dries. And after doing this 2 or 3 or 5 or 10 times, those boards are no longer beautifully smooth and flat. Now, these are big boards. They're like 4 meters tall and 1 meter wide, enough to put these paper. You've seen pictures of this. Guys out in the sun taking these boards back and forth and back and forth. But after using them 5, 6, 10 times, whatever, they're no longer smooth. You call your local board supplier guy and he gets his plane, dresses them down, nice and smooth again. Good. The next batch of paper will have a nice smooth surface. But your boards are now, instead of 23 millimeters, they're now 22 millimeters. You can see where this is going. They don't want to call the planing guy in to plane the boards. So bit by bit by bit, the boards get rougher and rougher and rougher, and the papermaker just doesn't give a shit, because most of his customers are making some modern art crap that doesn't matter anyway, and only 2 of his customers are making paper that's great wave and needs smooth paper. You can see where it's going. They don't bother anymore. So year by year by year, month by month by month, the paper we've been receiving has got rougher and rougher and rougher and rougher, to the point now when we're doing prints like the Ukiyo-e Heroes prints we do, before we can start printing, we have to take the paper, put it in a press. I have a little etching presser. We don't etch it, but we put the paper in the press to flatten the surface back to where it's supposed to be before we start. Anyway, so what other paper makers do, or some paper makers do, is instead of putting it on boards, which has this problem of the boards need maintenance, and what do you do when it's raining? What they do is they have a metal drying thing they've built. It's got a gas heater underneath, and it's got 2 big metal panels, one on each side. You pull your paper up and you put it on this panel. Psst, put the next one up. Psst, the first one's dried, peel it off. And paper dried on those panels are smooth, 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 because the metal stays smooth. The downside is you're cooking that stuff. If it's too hot, you've cooked the paper. It's all mulberry fiber. It's proteins and stuff. It's like food. What do we do to make it edible and digestible? We cook it first, which breaks up proteins and enzymes and whatever happens. The paper is weakened. I don't want to buy paper that's dried quickly on a metal panel. So what's Sawaki-san doing, the guy who makes my paper? He's drying it on a gas-fired metal panel. He and I had a little talk about this, and he says, I've been worried about this. We're sort of cooking the paper, and I'm like, let's talk. So what he does is he's got enough of them in a row, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them in a row. And he's got the temperature turned down, 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 down. He puts it on one with a light, puts it up to the second one. It's not dry yet. He's got a third one and a fourth one. And by the time he gets the fourth one, the first one is now dry at low temperatures. I mean, this guy's my twin brother. I can just hug him, hug him, hug him. We think the same thing. We are just trying to get through to the end of the day, make a good product, but without cutting corners, making something that's going to last, as long as it possibly can. So anyway, long story short, the paper in the photograph you see here now, it's beautiful. Look at the paper on the left of this thing. This is a stack of 50 sheets you're seeing here. It's silky, silky, silky smooth. And no bark. We can't find any, not a scrap of bark. And how is he getting away with this? What's he doing? This gets so good. The old papermaker we've been dealing with, he's doing it the traditional way. It's all done within the family. It's a family job, family job, family. Part of this is supposed to be top secret. You don't get other people to come in and do it. Anyway, Jack, maybe the story within a story. We had problems with the bark. This is 5, 6, 10 years ago, whatever. I don't even remember. I went up there to see him, and I had taken a piece of paper and put it on the table, and it was full of bark. And living national treasure. You can't criticize a living national treasure. He looks at the paper on the table and he knows what I'm going to say. Before I can say it, he says, let's go in the back room. And we get up from the tea and the table. He takes me in the back room and he opens the door. And the back room is where they do the rocking on one side of the paper. On the other side, there's the stream from outside actually comes into the room where they're working. There's glass windows all along one side, it's on the north side of the room. And then the water is diverted from the stream outside into the room where it goes along a channel. And kneeling on the wooden platform in front of this channel are this papermaker's mother and his wife and his son's wife, I guess. The three of them were there. And it's winter, it's February or something, and they're huddled in, and they've got this little heater under their bum to try and keep them warm. And their hands are in the cold water, which is flowing. They've got the mulberry fiber in little net bags, and they're picking out the little bits of bark in flowing cold water. Tradition, 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 tradition. If you use the water that's too warm, it goes smelly, whatever, just tradition, tradition, tradition. Anyway, here we are. We stand by the door of this thing, looking into this room where there's three women, and Ioannis would have been, I don't know, 70 at this time or something. I don't even know, 69 or 70. His mother is like 90. His wife is 70. The three women are doing this. And he says, too much bark in the paper, right? He gestures, he says, you tell him. You tell him. And I'm like standing there, and this 90-year-old woman looks over her shoulder, and she's in this cold water, and I'm going to tell her, lady, try and get this, a bit more bark, whatever. I just, what happens? We just leave, and that's it. And he shrugs his shoulders. He said, what are we going to do? So he's in on this. He knows what's happening. He knows what it's about. But what are you going to do? I can't reach the curtain. Part of the same conversation, actually, too. We came out of there, and he said, something else I want to show you, I want to talk to you about. He drags me up. They're in a real rural village in a bit of a valley, and he's the last house, and behind his house is mountainside. He says, let's go. We take a little walk up a path, so we get to the halfway up the mountain, we can see and look at his house, and there's the little stream, the water coming off the mountain that goes in through his house. And he says, you don't like the paper, you don't like the paper. His frustrated voice, his gestures up to the sky. I mean, this is like 15 years ago. I can't remember the exact words he said. I'm paraphrasing the kind of conversation he told me. He looks up to the sky and says, look at that. What do you see? And I'm like, sky, what are you talking about? It's sky, whatever. He says, you can't see it and I can't see it, but it's full. And I forget the Japanese word for it. Sulfur dioxide. The Chinese coal, burning coal, burning coal, burning coal, burning coal, all comes over Japan. Sulfur dioxide. The air is full of it. It rains. The water is full of this stuff. He says, look around. Look, what do you see? What do you see? What do you see? And I'm like, it's trees. Yeah, they're trees. What kind of trees? They're cedar trees. All the mountainsides in these areas of Japan, in the post-war period, all the natural foliage was cut down, and cedars. You've seen this when you go on the Shinkansen down to Kyoto. Mountains with rows and rows and rows and rows and rows of trees, all planted. They're cedar trees, needles. The soil is just acidic beyond belief, and that's the water that pours down into this guy's workshop. Acidic soil, acidic rain. He says, that's the whatever. He tried to swear in Japanese, and I don't even understand Japanese swear words. So whatever, make up your own swear words. That's the fucking word that I live in. And you want paper, you're complaining about the paper. And I want paper that's as good as it was in the Meiji period. But this isn't Meiji anymore. It's not Meiji anymore. And the guy is doing what he can. He's not a monster. His son is doing what he can. They're not bad people. But they're fighting an environment that's changed. And I'm the idiot who wants paper made the way it was in 1890, not 2017. So I'm the guy who's out of step here. Anyway, to get back to the point I got here, the chiri, the bark in this paper. Sawaki-san's paper has no chiri. So how did he get past this? What has he done? What he's done is this. It's so obvious on the face of it. He's in a little mountain village, same as Iwano-san's in a little mountain village. There's no supermarket. There's no convenience store. There's nothing. No jobs. But there are people. And what he does is he gets middle school kids, 15, 16, 18, whatever, middle school, high school kids, whatever, who desperately need a part-time job. And look what they got. They got sharp eyes like you have never seen before, because they're 15, they're not 90. They could care less about the cold water. They sit there chatting, listening to rap music while they do this. He gets young kids, pays them a nice wage for this, and the paper comes out as clean as the cleanest paper you have ever seen in the last million years. Look at it. clean, clean, clean paper. And it's smooth. You can see the lines there. There's some vertical lines in the paper you see in this picture. This is from the bamboo screen, of course. All Japanese traditional paper has this. Another thing you can see here, the paper is usable right up to the edges, to the margins. The paper we've been getting from Iwano-san, the edge 1, 2, 3 centimeters, his screen has been decaying. There's bits of crap around the edge of it. We have to cut off about 3 centimeters of it before we can use it. This paper is usable almost right to the very edge. I mean, I just love this guy. I just love this guy. If he wasn't married, I'd offer to marry him. I don't know. You get what I'm getting at. He's crazy, and it's just so cool. He's living there with his wife and a young apprentice. And the young apprentice has the idea that he wants to be an origami master. He's still young. He's like 19 or something like this. I don't know, whatever. But you don't make money as an origami master when you're 19 years old. He's making real stuff like super dragons and stuff like this all out of one sheet of paper. I should have got some links, whatever. And this apprentice, in order to live in the world of paper and whatever, is working for him, pulling chitty and getting the stuff ready and travels like this. So it's a little family workshop, and it's just doing everything so right. So anyway, I can't say we've bet the farm on this because we still are ordering paper from the other workshop. And maybe that's a bit hypocritical of me, because I'm trying to abandon the older workshop. So am I being hypocritical by still ordering from him while I order from the new place? I don't think so. I'm just trying to run my business and cover my bets. Let's look at more of these pictures here. There we are. Smooth, clean paper. You can use it right to the very end. It just looks so good. But now, this story is not 100% totally happy story, because I pick up the first sheet. This is the 8. Remember, he sent me samples. There's 8, 11, and 15. And 8 was the, again, let's call it thin, medium, and thick. 8 was the thin. We need it for making prints like the Great Wave, which don't have a lot of colors stacking up on top of each other, but need a good, crisp, solid, stable base. I pick up the first sheet here in this photograph, and you can see my fingers underneath. It's too thin. It's way thinner than the sample, and I mean way thinner than the sample. I run upstairs, I call Suga-san and Aimi-san. Suga-san's in the middle of printing, she can't come downstairs. Aimi-san looks at it, and we are looking at it. Here we are, there's the sample, the exact same sample I've got right here. And she's saying, what are we gonna do? Because it seems unprintable, because it's so thin. Seems unprintable. And this is now, it's Sunday morning here. This is Thursday afternoon here. Me and Aimi-san are talking about this. I called down Aoyama-san. This too, maybe you've mentioned, we talked about Lee-san, the young man who helped me build the shop here 3 years ago. This is the same young man. He has now become a Japanese citizen, and as part of doing that, he took a Japanese name, so Aoyama. So if you hear me talk about Lee-san or any references to Lee-san in past streams or whatever, this is Aoyama-san. He's the man who is now, he's helping me with sizing. He's doing the woodblock making for me upstairs now. Oh, there's a cool story. We found a new separate stream. Anyway, so we're looking at this. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And from their point of view, I know they're thinking, oh my God, this is like we're comparing the two side by side. Sorry about the twitch. So I run out to the room and I go to my little folder of prints. Most of my own personal print collection is back in Ome, but I've got a few things that have come in recently from Yahoo Auctions. I went back to this little folder of prints. Let me pop away the slideshow for a minute. If I bring it back, it might start at the beginning. I don't know. Anyway, let me pop away the slideshow for a minute. Okay. These are prints from the Meiji era. They were things that came in from Ueda-san for selling, and I decided to keep them for myself. Now, I can show you the piece of paper, but what I can't describe to you is the thinness. These are thin beyond belief. Let me get a... You've all seen this stuff, right? You know what we do with this. I tell you, there is not a whole lot of difference thickness-wise. This is soft. This is a bit of paper. And for years and years and years, a bunch of us in the printing business, especially me and all my staff, we've looked at these prints and thought, how did they do it? This paper is unbelievably thin. If you moisten this and try to put it in your registration marks to print, you can't even hold it. The pigment comes saturating right through to the back. When you hold it up to the light and look at it, it's solid pigment. The paper used to be bizarrely thin, but they knew how to handle it. So back to the slideshow here. I'm talking to Ayumi-san. Where's the print? Here. This is whatever. These are the prints. Right. These are the prints I'm showing her, saying, look at this, look at this, look at this. And she says, yeah, I know you showed these to me before. How did they do that? And I said, I don't know how they did it. But here is paper that looks like the paper they did this on. So we've got this paper now. I'll go back a couple of sheets here. We've got this paper, this super thin, beautifully surfaced, calendared, 100% mulberry fiber paper that looks exactly like the paper from 1860. And it's our challenge now to figure out, how did they do that? How did they do that? And we're looking at something now that basically has been lost. The technology has changed so much, slowly, step by step, over the intervening years. And our challenge now is to figure out, how on earth are we going to print on paper this thin? Of course, after I've done my tests today, we're going to see if this is usable or not. I'm going to call Sawaki-san back saying, Sawaki-san, we have it looks great, but it's really thin. What's the story? What's going on? And I'll talk to him later this afternoon once I do my printing test. But anyway, moving forward, that was the 8 Hachimome. So of course we then opened, this is David now opening the 11. We open the 11, here's Ayumi-san helping me unroll it. Looks good, clean, beautiful. Looks exactly just like the first one, rich, clean. Compare it to the sample, and it's way thicker than the sample. So those 3 samples we got from him last autumn, they were again 8, 11, 15, thin, medium, and thick. The batch of paper we've received for actually the printing, the thin one we've received is way thinner than the sample. The next one we received is way thicker than the sample. We didn't order, the jumbo fat one. And this doesn't make any sense, because those two samples were made of a double layer and a triple layer. And the one we've got with a double layer is thinner, so that would imply that the thing that he's rocking, the single sheet version, is thinner. And if that's the case, why would the next one be thicker rather than thin? Unless what's happened is he's made the whole batch so thin that when he makes the 8, the 1, 2, it's thinner. He made the 11, it was too thin, so he did it with 4 instead of 3. And that's what I'm thinking has happened. So what we've got here is double layered paper, 2 thin ones making an 8, and I think it's 4 layers, 4 thin ones making what he says is 11, but is actually 12 or 13 or 14. Anyway, so there we are. Today's job for me now is to test these different sheets. Here we are. It's me and Aoyama-san and Ayumi-san looking at this paper and talking about it. There's the last sheet, the last shot Cameron took. Dave is looking. I'm not quite sure. Is he happy or sad or whatever? I don't know. So there we have it. That's the backstory yesterday. What I did was I cut some paper up for testing, and I have in my little stack here this morning just some very small pieces of this paper of the 2 styles, the thin one and the thick one. And rather than make a whole big production out of it, I thought, where's a block handy that I can use to do some quick test printing? And there's this block, and you know what this is all about. And so, in a lot of talking, what I have to do now is I have 4 sheets of paper in here, 2 thin, 2 of the 8 and 2 of the 11. And I gotta say, I haven't the slightest idea how to print this 8. It is thin like tissue paper. There's one place to start, and that's right here. I don't know if anybody's still with me here. I can't even see this. Let's try this. Oh, 2. I sized this, of course. The paper we get from the papermaker, we can never use it raw. As I said, it just pulls apart. So we had to size it. I did this last night. There's a big question. What do I do? We talked before. Again, jump back with me 1 year. The Living National Treasures paper was starting to come apart. So over the past year, we've increased the amount of glue, the Nikawa glue. We've increased the amount of glue that goes in the sizing to help the paper stay together. But all of the printers, me printing those damn owls, Kubota-san printing the heroes, all of the printers are complaining. There's too much glue in there. Too much glue in the ink, the pigments don't go inside. And we've been faced with this paradox. If we don't put glue in there, the paper comes apart because it's so weak. If we put too much glue in there, we can't print the damn stuff. So for a year, more than a year, nearly 2 years, we've been struggling with this. I'm yelling at Aoyama-san, drop the Nikawa. He yells back at me. If we drop it, the papers, they're going to complain about the feathering. We've literally almost been at each other's throats sometimes about this. So what I did was last night, I'm going to jump ahead and trust Sawaki-san that his paper has body, has guts. I'm going to forget the 2-year history now with this other place. And the sizing I did last night was back to the level I used to do about 2 years ago. Given this thickness of paper, given this climate, it's cold. The sizing varies dramatically at the time of year. In summer, we have to dramatically increase the amount of glue in it because the paper is so soft naturally because of the softness, the rain, the humidity. As we move into winter normally, the amount of glue decreases. And if you go back for me 3, 4, 5 years, we would have been looking at maybe 60 grams per liter of glue in the mix in summer, dropping to about 40 grams per liter in winter, rising again to about 60 grams per liter in the summer. It's a back and forth. Now recently, even in winter, we've been doing 50, 55 grams, which we shouldn't have had to do. And that's why the printers are complaining about there's too much glue in there. But if we don't do that, the paper comes apart. So what I've done with this is I've forgotten the recent episodes. I've gone back to the way it used to be. I did this sizing last night. It's freezing freaking cold here. I went back to the normal winter level of 40 grams of glue per liter, plus 15% of that, 6 grams of alum powder. And that's the recipe I used for the sizing for this paper. Now, if this was our Living National Treasure paper I'm testing here today, I know exactly what would happen. It would fluff apart and tear apart. What's going to happen with Sawaki-san's paper? Aoyama said last night, you're no way, 40 grams, no way. It's going to fluff up and come apart straight as you try and print it. And I'm saying, no, I trust this guy. Whatever. I trust this guy. But remember, this guy, Sawaki-san, he's never made paper for printmaking before. This is a new thing for him, And maybe it's too soon for me to be doing this and showing you, because maybe this is just test number 3 that's going to fail. And I got to go back to the guy and say, no, look, it just doesn't have enough guts. We got to keep working on this. This may not be suitable. I'm doing my testing live here. Doesn't matter. It's all fun. It's all fun and games. What do I need here? Kawai-san's bench is a mess, I've got nothing ready. What am I going to print on here? We've got some blue and all that talk. I haven't got anything ready for the actual printing job itself. What's going on? Can you see where we are? Where do I do? We've got paste here. Let me just check this. We've got paste. I got some blue. I hear a question in the box, but just give me a break, okay? Just give me a break. Let me get this done. Oh, I've got no test paper. Where have I? I need just some blank junk sheets for... Oh, look at this. History. I was here a few days ago, right? Remember what I was doing? Look at this. Owls. Whatever. It's junk test paper. Let's try it. Oh, this is where it is. I found it. I know we've been talking about a sidetrack. We've been, the live stream we did, the 3-hour live stream last week. We've been talking about who gets the finished prints and stuff. I lost them. I couldn't find them. I've been thinking, how am I going to tell these people we've lost the prints? Somebody stole them. Here's the folder. 10 prints, 11 prints, and the little test print we did. Good. We're gradually collecting on our mail addresses. Got my printing glasses, they're downstairs. Let's fight through it doesn't matter. Is anybody with us still? What's this? 83. What are you talking about? 83% of chat says the paper will. He's done a poll. Whatever. Is anybody out there listening? I've just been talking. I haven't had a chance to see what's going on at all here. Doesn't seem like there's much activity in the chat because I'm talking too much. Is that the idea? Ah, well, life is fun, eh? So. Let's clean this up a bit. We haven't, I don't know. Where's his knives and stuff? No idea where his knives are. No idea. Kawai-san's supposed to have a knife here, but I can't see where it's put it. Here it is. On the back end of the registration marks, if we keep the registration marks at the back end, they're sharp at the edge. And when we're rubbing with the burn, it hits the sharp edge and tears the skin. Okay, let's try and get some sort of color. What are we doing here? We know what this lady needs. Bit of green, bit of black, bit of blue. And when I did the live stream the other day, clearly I should have put more black, you know. I should have put a touch of gray in there. Because the postcard sample that we had on the screen was clearly had more black inside. Partly I was just being whatever, I didn't really care much about it, I'm sorry, but I should have taken a bit more care. To try and make it look a bit closer to the sample. I came across looking like a bit of a fool. Can't David see there's black in there? And I saw later when I went back to look at that stream, I saw people were suggesting, Dave, put some black in, put some black in. Not enough body. Too watery there. I want to keep this, because of this test, I'm worried about the paper, coming apart. So what I've done is I'm going to keep the pigment a little bit on the watery side, and the paste too. This is also a little bit on the watery side. We can make the paste very gluteny, very thick and thicky, and we can make it lighter. And there's many factors here. But looking at those old Meiji prints I showed you, because that paper is so thin, I'm thinking that they must have used a paste that was really not so sticky and gluteny and stuff like that. I mean, if this really does turn out to be a thing, that this paper is going to work, and that we're going to have to learn how to use really super thin paper like that, there's many factors to change. The sizing is going to change. Even the brushes, actually. Again, so many sidetracks, I'm sorry. These printmaking brushes that we use these days, this stuff, this is not the kind of brush that we used back in the Edo time. This was a modern revolution that came after Westerners came. Brushes like this were being used from the Meiji time onwards. All the old Edo period prints you see, the Hiroshige's, Utamaro's, Hokusai's, they were all made with brushes of this style. Now, I got some of these a while ago when I first started printmaking, like 35 years ago, and I tried to use them and I just couldn't make it work. What the difference is, the hair here is clumped together in a single clump. There's no space between the hairs. Bang! It's one clump. Now, we have lots of visual documentation from the Edo period and up to early Meiji. These were the brushes they were using. There's sometimes they had the handle cut off. They were just using a short brush like that. And you can see them hanging on the rack in all the pictures and drawings that were made from the old days. This was the standard printmaker's brush during the period where that print was made, the print that I just showed you. This print was made with this kind of a brush, a single clump brush. Come the Meiji era, I guess they must have seen shoe brushes or something. Somebody tried an experiment. Wow, look at this, let's go with this. These are made of many small clumps of hair sewn in place. So there's maybe this half empty space here and half hair. And this is what's been normal now for the past 140 years or so, but it's actually not the way the old prints were made. Now, all of us think this is normal. This is what we all use here every day. It's what all of you who are trying are using, but it's actually not the way it used to be done. So if this thin paper is going to hold together, if we're going to have to try and figure out how to use it, maybe we're going to have to start doing some experiments with using the old brushes, because the way they leave pigment on the surface of the block is completely different. And at the moment, we don't have a clue. We use them like this for small areas. In fact, you'll see me in a few minutes putting the hair on this one, because they sort of work for small areas. What none of us can figure out is how to make it work on larger areas. So there's no end to the testing and trying and things that are going to have to go on here in the next little while. You can see too, I've been doing the same thing I did when I did that live stream, the 3-hour stream a few days ago, trying to get the block warmed up. I haven't touched paper to it yet, but I've been rubbing, I've been putting moisture, I've been putting paste, I've been putting pigment on, charging. And what we're doing here, the first sheet of paper I'm going to start in a minute, won't be sheet number 1, it'd be like sheet number 5. Okay, let's do this. A bit too watery still. Yeah. What I should do here, where am I? Where's this blue? I may have put too much water in the paste. I don't know. Let's see. I really want a watery approach here to start with rather than a sticky approach. This Loot Plus Bathing Woman. All right, looks close enough. Okay, let's try this. What should I do first, the thick one or the thin one? Let's try the thick one. I'm more confident about that. I know how to handle thick paper, but I don't know how to handle that super thin paper. It's hard to tell which is the front side and which is the back because he's done such a beautiful job of producing it. With Iwano-san's paper the last few years, it's clearly, which is the rough front and which is the rough back. All set? If Aoyama-san's watching, he's thinking it's gonna fiber. Dave is thinking it's probably not gonna fiber. Oh, we need a backing sheet. Whoa, this is thick paper. Slight fiber pulling. we're in the middle here. Look at this. Hang on a second. Let me try and get it so you can see it. Interesting. Can we get a light here? I don't know how we can see this in the camera. The impression is clear. There's very, very, very slight fiber pulling here. The pigment hasn't gone in as deeply as I would have thought it would have gone in. It's printable. It's printable. I think I need a little bit less paste and a bit more pigment. It's printable. It gives a good embossing because of the thickness, of course. There's a nice, good embossing feel to it. Very, very, very slight fiber pull-up. Can we see it in the camera there? This is usable paper. Another thing I didn't mention too. Wait tonight, do I have any paper from Iwano-san? I don't have any paper. The ones I was printing the other day, you know, those lutes. It's the color. The color, the color, the color. This is another really important part. Wait tonight. Here, oh, here's one. Here's our living national treasure paper. Ishikawa-san on the next bench. She's making some lutes. Look at the difference in color between these two sheets. The paper we're getting for years and years now has been bleached to make it white. They are thinking this is what we want. What we want is natural white. Now what's happening here, this is the new paper from Sawaki-san. He hasn't bleached it, but neither has he put it in the sun. Now what happens in the old days is you make paper with the natural mulberry fiber. You don't bleach it, but you put it on those boards in the sun. And as part of being on the boards out in the sunshine, it bleaches it, but not without the addition of any chemicals. It's sun bleaching. This is done inside, so it doesn't bleach in the sun, so it's artificially bleached. Now Sawaki-san, we've got the plus side. It's natural fiber with no bleach added, but he doesn't dry it in the sun. He dries it on those boards. So it doesn't get sun bleached. So it's kind of, what's the color? Can you see? Should I put it up on the Mac camera so you can see? Because that's a bit, the white balance is better, isn't it? This is the Living National Treasure paper, bleached, physically bleached with bleach. And this is the natural color paper. And it's plus minus, and I like the idea that it's a natural color paper, but when you're making a copy of the Great Wave print with the white foam and all that stuff, do you really want it to be this color? This is an interesting and an open question. It's a bit, I don't know, it's not yellow, but straw, maybe, light straw colored paper. Anyway, I shouldn't be talking, my block's gone dry. So as I said, a little tiny bit of pull up, nothing dramatic. So I've got 4 sheets here. Let's try a thin one, a super thin one. Oh my God, is this really printable? I've let the block dry, unfortunately. Now, super thin, so does it need as much pigment? Well, when you look back at those old Meiji era prints, super thin paper, but even on the back, the pigment is rich and deep. So I'm going to do this exactly the same way. I'm going to put on plenty of pigment and just see what happens. What's the worst that could happen? More. It's a bit wet. This is fun, you know. Beats working for a living. Still a bit wet. can't tell which is the front. They're both so smooth. There we go. Let's try this. Where's my test paper? Softly, Dave. Softly, Dave. So here's the paper. Yesterday, Aimi-san and Aoyama-san are thinking this is unusable because it's too thin. What have we got here? Is there any fiber pull-up? Zero. No fiber pull-up. Zero. A little bit light. The pigments are still too light. I've got to put more pigment. It'll take more. It's come through to the back, but not that rich. This is going to work, you know. This is not deep and rich enough. But remember too, with the thin paper we're using is not meant for prints that have, you know, staggeringly rich paper. But then again, the Meiji one, there it is, you know, we can do rich. Let me try an experiment. Let me print double layer on this. I'm going to put the paper back in my stack. This might be crazy, but let's just try this. No new pigment, just what's left over in the brush. Let's do a double impression on this thin paper. That's insane, but let's just try it. I'll use a softer Baron. Look at this now. Do we have pull-up? Nothing yet. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. Where am I? That's so thin. I mean, this is thin like a Kleenex tissue, you know? I have a micrometer here downstairs. I'll take the micrometer later when we're posting about this. And no fiber pull-up. None. Zero. Aoyama-san. Shit, if we can make this happen, you know. Years and years of frustration. Years of frustration. If we can make this happen. I've got 2 sheets left. I've got a thick one and a thin one. Where are they? Sorry about ignoring the chat here. Excuse me. And remember, if we were making an edition of this print, you know, this is still testing, I've got a tile. When it comes time to make an edition of this, we will get a bowl ready, we'll put green in there, blue in there, touch of black in there. We will get a pigment ready so that there's no mix and match here. What I'm doing, you can see I'm dabbing green, dabbing blue, so there's going to be no consistency in these prints color-wise. Remember, it doesn't matter, we're just testing. For the edition, we will mix stuff in the bowl so that they all look the same. Okay, let's try the same thing with the thick paper. Let's do a double impression. Let's keep the pigment. My God, it's thick. I can't believe this is actually printable. Let's do a double impression here. Without my glasses, that's taking my life in my hands too. It's like printing on cardboard. I want a workout. Okay. I kept this light, designed for double impression, so let's have a look. There we are, fairly light first. Let's just throw it back under the pack and do it again. Without my glasses, man. Okay, fiber pull-up, some fiber pull-up. Can you see it? Doing that double. Maybe if I get the angle just right in the light here. Can you see? There's been a touch of fiber pull-up here. Two impressions, one after the other. Bang, bang. It's too much. At this level of glue then. So going by the experience we've had, if we were going to try and do this, we would need maybe, instead of 40 grams of glue, maybe we'd need 45, I'm not sure. This is double impression. It's going to blur, is it going to be okay? We've still got this white streak, you know. We're going to be living with this for the first X months or so. Interesting, I don't know if you can see it. The top row here, the color is not so good, right at the very top. And this actually is the edge of the sheet. I've run right to the edge of the sheet. Because you can perhaps see, can I get into the light? Oh, I don't know if you can see it. There's some irregularities in the paper because I've gone right to the very edge. We cut 1, 2, 3 pieces out of this. So with the Iwano-san, we've learned to keep away 3 centimeters or so. With this guy, we'll have to keep back a bit more. Okay, what have I got left? One more thin sheet. Let's do this again. I keep stopping to talk and the block dries out. It's beginners. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do this twice, so I'm keeping it light so there's not too much wetness on the surface of the block here. Oh, my cover sheet keeps going. I'm losing it. Way softer, delicate touch. I'm being very, very careful here. Firm but soft. What's the word? Firm but okay. Here's first. Let's do this twice. Light pull up, none. Interesting. Interesting. I'm getting more pull up on the 11 than on the 8. More pull up on the thick paper. Not going to make sense a little bit because I put the same amount of glue on both of them. So maybe the thinner paper got more glue saturation. So what I might need to do is, next time I do the sizing, let it sit longer, get better saturation maybe. Let's see. Here we go. I hear that faint sound of the doorbell in the distance. Look at this. I got a brush hair fell out. Look at that. Spoiled this one. See what it is there? There's a brush hair which must have fallen out of the brush, and I was too busy chatting and goofing off to notice it. And get rid of the hair. But what's in the paper now, there's the negative shape of a brush hair is pressed there. Maybe we can get rid of it. I don't know. Not usually. Once that's in there, they're usually permanent. Anyway, there we are. Look at that richness. This is a super thin paper. No pull-up. Okay. Look, I'm so happy with this. I don't know what I'm doing here. This paper is going to need much more experimentation. It's come up backwards from what I expected. I expected the thick one I'd be able to handle because I know how to do this. We've had thick paper before. It's not. Neither of these, the single impression or the double impression, neither is working well. But the thin paper is. It's taken a double impression, which I would never have expected. Oh, we got to finish the print. There's a hat. There's a head. Let's do the other block. What time is it? 9:22. Jeez, I thought this was going to be a 10-minute stream this morning. Nothing to show, nothing to show. 4 pieces of paper testing, a 10-minute stream. I'm not on party duty, am I? I don't think so. Let's do the head. I don't know if you guys are asking in the stream there about can I have this print, can I have this print? And I'm sorry, no. These test sheets are going to stay here, absolutely. These are going to be labeled on the back what they are. They're going in a file folder, they will stay here. So the prints I've made today, please don't even ask if you're asking already. These prints will stay here. There's very important tests for us. I will need to refer to these in the future. I'm going to take them next time I go and see Sawaki-san and talk about stuff. So please don't ask that one. Maybe you haven't been, I don't know, whatever. Just to mention it. We have a head. Let's go back now and do it. It needs so little pigment. Yeah, little tiniest dab of black here. Here we go. See, way too weak. This is the thick sheet. Way too weak. In fact, I should maybe just do that one more impression. Interesting. So that's those thick sheets. They're going to need maybe a much denser pigment mix. It's going to be some experimentation here. No good now. Okay, now for the thin ones. Oh my God, it's so thin. Oh, there's another downside to this thin paper, you know, of course, is that we can't do embossing blocks and stuff on it because there's no body in the paper to leave an embossment. So, for example, some of our famous prints, the one of the crane with the wings all embossed and stuff, it would make really no sense on this kind of paper. All right, there we have it. Soakisan's paper is usable. Absolutely no question. Soakisan's paper is usable. The best way to use it, I'm not sure yet. We'll have to work this out. Let's zoom in. Today's results are not all 100% perfect. Wow, we can do this right away. I don't know how to use this paper yet. It's still a bit too much fiber pull up on the thick one. I'm going to have to figure out how to print properly to get good rich color. So I am not free and clear, but Soakisan's paper is usable. The panic by the staff yesterday, oh my God, that's so thin, what are we going to do? That panic is unjustified. We're going to be okay here. So look at this, it's so thin, right? You can see through it. So I'm going to do a bunch more testing. We'll try different kinds of prints with different kinds of color layering on top. And maybe in a couple of weeks after we've done a bunch more testing, we'll do a heroes print with some of these sheets inside. And I'll jump on the train and head back up there. And I got to, you know, the main issues with him are, why are these different from the samples you sent? Are you going to be able to make consistent paper for us? Because that's quite a concern, you know, when you've got a sample on the table. He kept a sample, I kept a sample, please order 100 sheets like this. When they are so different, that's a concern. So I'm not, you know, I'm not all that happy about this, but we have usable paper that we can make prints on. I'm very, very happy with that. Okay, I have no idea what's been in the chat, what I've seen, what I've missed, what I haven't caught. I'm sorry, no idea. This is a bit of a self-centered affair today here. I've told a story, but mostly I'm interested in doing this. We're off now. Today's Sunday. Monday morning, I have no idea what tomorrow's stream will be. My desk is full of desk type work, but I'll try and find something for streaming tomorrow morning. If I can't, maybe I'll just put up a note saying I'm sorry, it'll be desk work, no stream. I'll try and find something. Then the next day, Tuesday, we'll be off. I'm off on a trip to Omi, of course, for Tuesdays. Anyway, I'm happy the way this has gone forward today. I was really, really worried that this paper might just be too difficult to use, but as you can see, with no special preparation at all, it makes prints. Next step is the challenge for us now to learn how to actually use this in the best way. Okay, thank you very much for listening today, guys. And I'll see you again, I guess, tomorrow or the next day, or not the next day, but tomorrow, Wednesday. Thank you very much again. Bye for now. No, it won't focus. There we go. No, I should have just left it alone. Anyway, thanks very much. See you next time. Bye-bye.